To discuss it all, CBS News senior political editor Steve Shigera, CBSN political contributor, Democratic strategist, and founding partner of 270 Strategies, Linda Tran. Linda, also the communications director for Tim Kaine during his time as governor, as well as Mo Elleithee, a former DNC communications director. He was the traveling press secretary for Hillary Clinton's 2008 White House bid, somebody who has known and worked with Tim Kaine as well for some 15 years, who in fact officiated your wedding.
He did. He did a great job.
A belated mazel to you, Mo. But again, of the many jobs that you have done, one of them was DNC chair, comms chair. This is not what the party or the campaign had hoped for day one of its convention. What do you make of what we've witnessed thus far today?
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate because the party actually was beginning to coalesce, right? Yeah, you're going to have some Bernie Sanders supporters who are going to, protest and have their voices heard, but the party really was coalescing behind Hillary Clinton, behind the Clinton-Kaine ticket. And so when this story began to break at the end of last week, it really did threaten to disrupt and distract. I think the decision to step down was absolutely the right one. I don't think there was any other option on the table. I think it's a little risky and bizarre, particularly after what we just saw, that she still plans to speak before the full convention.
How is that possible? I mean, The Hill is in fact reporting that there are now several Democratic operatives who've made it clear they want her to resign. In fact, by step away altogether by 3 p.m. Eastern today. Again, it's set to begin here in just a few hours. How on earth can she step to and gavel in the ceremony?
Whether she gives up the title today or on Thursday is much less relevant than her stepping to that podium. And take a look at what we just saw. Multiply that by an entire arena. That's what we are risking right now at this convention, which is not what we want. We saw what happened with Ted Cruz when he had a very disruptive event at the Republican committee. The party doesn't need that right now. We are unified. We don't need to highlight the one place where there continues to be anger.
Linda, it has been suggested in many reports that there may just be personal stubbornness in play here, that many have reached out really over these last 24 hours, and that she, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, is resolute that she will go on at least to open and close the proceedings later this week. To Mo's point, though, based on what we just saw, is that disconnect, is there a way to bridge that chasm?
I'm not sure there is. I mean, anecdotally, we're hearing the same things you are, that she's actually been encouraged to step down for not just the last 24 hours, but for quite a while in different kinds of conversations over the tenure of her time as the DNC chair. You know, what's really devastating, and to Mo's point about having a much, much larger visual of this, potentially, if she addresses the entire convention, is that a visual is much more powerful than what you read on paper. And this news cycle would have played out, and the whole issue and concern about Democratic unity would have played out on paper had she not put herself in front of cameras and put herself in front of a podium.
It's interesting with regard to optics, Steve. You and I discussed this a lot last week in Cleveland, watching the delayed response on the part of the Trump campaign to those charges of plagiarism. They would end up responding in a way that many thought, why didn't you do this 24 hours ago? Moving ahead then to this point, I also want to ask you about the response yesterday of Bernie Sanders. It was muted. He did not dance on a grave. There were no victory laps taken. What did you make of the senator's response?
Well, I think it's what Mo was saying, is that there's some unity in play here. Bernie Sanders came out a couple of weeks ago and endorsed Hillary Clinton, full-throated endorsement, and said we got to focus on the matter at hand, which is defeating Donald Trump. So now you've given Bernie Sanders' supporters license to sort of raise heck now with this email scandal, and I think there was already eyebrows were raised, I think, with the Kaine pick among that group of Democrats. And then the email story comes out, and it's really sort of poured fuel on the fire, and it's got people really riled up. It's going to be interesting to watch Sanders tonight. How does he speak to his supporters and his delegates? Does he take this, quote, revolution that he says that he built and now pivot to focusing on Donald Trump and getting those supporters to focus on the general election as opposed to these intra-party fights? That's going to be very interesting to watch during his remarks tonight, in prime time, I might add.
Interestingly, Mo, we are also seeing the GOP nominee being very much the provocateur today on his chosen medium, Twitter, looking perhaps to drive a wedge between Sanders supporters and those of Hillary Clinton, but also really looking to poke the bear with regard to Bernie Sanders himself. I could pick many. I'm just going to pick this one. He tweeted, if Bernie Sanders, after seeing the just released emails, continues to look exhausted and done, then his legacy will never be the same. What to make, if nothing else, of this added component of the drama we're seeing underpin day one here?
Yeah, and that is exactly why we need to just end the drama, right? I mean, Donald Trump is going to sit there and keep poking at this and poking at this. Now, Bernie Sanders has been pretty effective in poking back every time Donald Trump tries to do this. But as long as this drags out, we run the risk of this conversation continuing, and that's not good for anybody here.
Also, Linda, it's something we've discussed often. Hillary Clinton runs into problems with regard to opinions of her honesty and trustworthiness. She told our Scott Pelley on Saturday when this first broke that she knew nothing of it in real time. She has since insisted the same. But what to make of the optics for a candidate who was, I'm sure, hoping to use these 4 days to redefine that narrative?
Well, you're exactly right. The optics aren't good around these emails, and they're there for everybody to read. And what the campaign, I'm sure, was hoping was that in announcing Tim Kaine, who is widely viewed as incredibly decent, incredibly honest, incredibly authentic, was going to help her and help humanize her. And in fact, the chemistry when they're on stage together does make her much, much more appealing. And I think that we're going to see more of that as we move forward. So this is going to be a bad moment, I think, but we're definitely going to move past it.
Steve, very quickly, do you think Debbie Wasserman Schultz gavels things in today?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I can't see how it happens. We saw what happened this morning to her at the Florida delegation. I mean, that was just a microcosm of what could possibly happen here. There are 1,900 Bernie delegates who will not be happy to see her on stage. Do they want that visual out there for all to see? Maybe they don't care. Maybe they figure it's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and by Thursday night after Hillary Clinton gives her speech, nobody's going to care. But I can't imagine there are a lot of Democrats right now that don't want to see that get out there.
It's not just 1,900 Bernie delegates. There are a lot of Clinton delegates now that also are ready to move on.
Right.
Steve, let's say that happens. Will speeches from Senator Cory Booker, Senator Elizabeth Warren, First Lady Michelle Obama, and finally, to close things tonight, Senator Bernie Sanders, will that be enough to balance day one's narrative?
It's interesting because I think the difference between the Democratic convention and the Republican convention is that the star power is a lot brighter here. There are a lot more famous speakers here. And so I do think Michelle Obama, likely making jokes about the Melania Trump speech, will definitely get a lot of press and a lot of play. But the overall Democratic unity question is not going to go away, right? And so there's the nomination of Tim Kaine on Wednesday. You have Bernie Sanders delegates threatening to mess that up or to try to cause some trouble around that. So they got to deal with the unity question no matter what. Yes, we'll talk about these speeches a lot, but the unity question needs to be dealt with.
I'm going to get you all out of here then on this one, Linda, and Mo, I'm going to give you a chance as well. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, does she gavel things in tonight?
My guess is probably not.
Mo?
I think probably not, but it's going to go up till the very last moment before she gives it up.
It's got to be some fascinating things happening behind the scenes, if nothing else. Linda, Steve, you're with us all week. Mo, very much appreciate your time today.
Thank you.